Hello and welcome to another Adobe Max session. If you are returning, if this is your first Adobe Max session, hi, I'm Valentina Vee. I am a filmmaker in Los Angeles. I direct, shoot, and edit videos for brands and shows all over the world. And I'm also an Adobe Max Master trainer. And I'm very happy to be back for what is my fifth year. Thank you so much for coming to this presentation. You are in SS 6610, multi-camera editing workflow. It's easier than you think. Today, we will be covering multicam best practices, shooting via Premiere Rush, creating multi-camera source sequences, refining a multicam edit, and best strategies for color matching angles. So here I am within Adobe Premiere Pro, and I already have a few bins of stuff that I have imported. I have my footage, I have my audio, my sequences, and my graphics. Inside of footage, I have 3 folders. I have Cam A, Cam B, and Cam C. And if I open up each folder, I can see what's inside. In Cam A, I have my straight to camera talking head footage. So this is me doing a review of an egg cooker straight to camera. Clearly, I am very good at reviewing egg cookers. In camera B over here, I have a close-up on my hands, which are doing the actual egg cooking. Now, mind you, this was all shot with 3 completely different cameras. And in camera C, I have a top-down overhead view, but it is also upside down. The other thing that I want to point out to you is that all of this here, we have the frame rate, we have media start, media end, media duration, so we can see all of our information, all of our metadata as we pull it up. One thing I want to do is reorganize this a little bit. I want to take my media duration column and move it forward so that I can always see what my media duration is, because it's going to be the very, very first column that's going to become important in just a sec. So now that you know what's in each and every single one of these bins, I'd like to call your attention to something that I like to do, best practices, for when I import the footage. Every time I import the footage, I make sure to color code it with its own color. And I find that super, super important later so that you can see if you're using too much of a particular camera, or later in color correction, you can use these labels to color correct your footage. So in order to relabel an entire folder, you can select the folder heading, or you can just select the clips inside, select them all, right click right where the label is, go to label, and then you can change the label. So I could change this label to blue, for example, but of course it didn't change my folder. So if I want to change my folder, I can go label blue. Or, let's put them all back to iris. So I'll select all of them by holding down shift, right click, label, iris. Another thing to keep in mind when you're shooting footage is to shoot in the highest quality possible. So shoot in 4K if you can, because that's going to give you the most amount of latitude to reframe if you need. In this case, I shot all the clips in Cam A and Cam B in 4K, and you can tell because when I open it up, and I can either expand this view to see the video info over here, or if I don't want to expand the view every time to see all the info, I could just press the tilde key, which is the squiggly line at the top left of my keyboard, while having this window selected, and that will pull up the window full screen. And in fact, let me put the video info right next to the media duration. So I see the duration and I see the frame size, and you can see this is 4K. It's 3840 by 2160 pixels. That means it's 4K. And inside of Cam B, it is also, actually Cam B looks like it's a combination of 1080 clips and 4K clips. And Cam C is all 1080. Now, say that maybe you don't have a camera that shoots 4K. I'm willing to bet that you do. as long as you have a phone like this iPhone 11 over here, it actually shoots in 4K. You may not think it does, but it does. So here I am inside of the Adobe Premiere Rush app, and it has all sorts of projects that I've done. But if I want to open up the Rush camera, I just go down to the bottom of the screen where there is that plus, and I go to take video or photo, and that pulls up Adobe Rush's camera. Now, the front camera is not in 4K, and you can tell because here at the bottom, it says 1080, 30 frames per second. So if you click on it, you'll be able to see the different options, and 4K is not an option. However, when I flip to the reverse, which is up here, you can flip it, and all of a sudden you see that you have the 4K option happening over here at the bottom. So you can select 4K. Let me flip it this way. And you can also select your frame rate. So you can shoot up to 60 frames per second, which will give you that nice slow motion, high quality recording. In this case, I would be recording at 24 frames per second because that would give me a more cinematic frame rate. If you want to set focus, you move this focus point, and therefore you can set focus on different parts of your image. If you want to set exposure, you can move the circular exposure picker. And then if you want to lock it, you just click on it and that locks. You can also set different things like your ISO, your shutter speed, things like that, to really have fine-tuned controls of what you are going to shoot. So there's no excuse not to have a high quality 4K camera for your multicams. All you have to do is use your phone. So back here in Premiere, I didn't use Adobe Rush to shoot these, but I did use 3 completely different cameras. Some of these shots are in 4K, some of these shots are in 1080. Let's make a multi-camera sequence and then put that into a regular sequence. So the first thing we're going to do is find the clips that correspond to each other. So I'm going to make this full screen by pressing the tilde key top left of my keyboard. And we will take a look. Looks like we have the first clip in camera A here, but it is 36 seconds long. So it was definitely a bum take. However, the second clip here in camera A was 7 minutes and 36 seconds long. We'll take a look here in camera B. We have our first clip as 7 minutes and 44 seconds long. So that seems like the two that would go together, right? And the same thing here in camera C. If we scroll down and open that up, we see that our first take here is 7 minutes and 11 seconds. So it seems like all 3 of those should go together. Also in the audio folder, if we go into the H4n folder here, we'll be able to see that sure, we have a couple of bum takes here, but the first one that really is going to work is this mono 002, because that is around the same length or media duration as our camera A, B, and C clips. So I know that those are the things that I have to put into a multicam source sequence. So I'll go ahead and select camera A, the 7-minute take. I'll select the 7-minute take from camera B, and I'm holding down Command. Or if you're on a PC, it would be Control. And I'm selecting all 4 of those. Now with all those selected, I'm going to right click and go to Create Multi-Camera Source Sequence. Now it is very important when you're doing this that you have recorded audio on every single camera. It could be, just really bad audio from your camera's default microphone. But as long as there's some audio for Premiere to go off of, it's going to be able to match those cameras by waveform automatically. So you don't have to do anything. So we will click create multi-camera source sequence, and now we have the create multi-camera source sequence dialog box. A couple of things to note. First of all, if you want to rename anything, you can. Here you can either use the video clip name, the audio clip name, or you can use a custom. I will do an audio clip name because the audio clips seem a little bit more straightforward to me, and that looks good. Second of all, your synchronize point, this is where it's important to have recorded audio. Use the audio checkbox for that. This is the most important thing here for camera names. You want to make sure that you have selected enumerate cameras, because it will literally be able to let you choose which camera is on screen at what time by pressing the corresponding number of that camera, 1, 2, and 3. And I'll show you in just a second. So I have selected audio and I have selected enumerate cameras, and I'll press OK. Now it'll take a second. It processes all 4 of those clips. So those 3 video clips and that 1 audio clip. After it has processed, it has added that multi-camera source sequence down here as a separate clip. It's called a multi-camera source clip. And now this multi-camera source clip can be dragged into any sequence. Even though I shot in 4K, I am going to make a video that is 1080. So I'm going to make my working sequence a 1080 sequence. I'll select my sequences folder. I'll go to new sequence, and I will make sure that those sequence settings are 23.976, 1920 by 1080 pixels. So it is a 16:9 aspect ratio, square pixels, and I will give it a name. So I will name this Egg Cooker Review Multicams, and I'll press OK. So now that you have that sequence ready, you can go ahead and drag that multicam source sequence that was created directly into it. Voila. Now, when you look at it inside of your program monitor, you'll see a few things. Number one, you'll see that only one of the cameras is showing up. Number two, you'll see that it is zoomed in. Why is it zoomed in? Well, because our footage here is 4K, but our sequence is 1080. So if we want to do any modifications or any resizing or go inside of the multi-cam source sequence, what we have to do is double click on just the audio. By default, if we select it, it selects both the audio and the video. So to select just the audio, hold down Alt and click, and that selects just the audio, and we can double click. And now we are inside of the multi-camera source sequence, and we can see what it has done. It has taken all of the audios, lined them all up perfectly, and it has muted the tracks for all of the video audios. It has only left unmuted that separate audio track that we recorded separately from a different recorder. But now you can take a look at these and you can see that the topmost one, which is this one, it's perfect. It's in 1080, it's the right size. The other ones underneath, this one, for example, it's in 4K. So if I wanted to make it smaller, I'll go over here to the scale property and I'll change it to 50. And I can do the same thing for the one at the bottom. I'll change that one to 50. So now if I go back over here, you can see that it has now adjusted to the scale. But I'm still only seeing one camera. So how do I see all of them? You have to go into the MultiCamera Editor. Now here I already have it pulled up. So this is my MultiCamera Editor right there. And this is my record button for multi-camera editing. If you don't have that, you can go into your button editor button, which is down here, click it, and you'll be able to see all the buttons here. And then you can just drag in the multi-camera view, and you can drag in the multi-camera record toggle. So if it's not there by default, like that, you can just drag it in. Press OK. So now that you have that here, you can enable it. And you'll have this new view where this is camera 1, this is camera 2, and this is camera 3. And what's fun is, because we selected enumerate cameras, once we touch the 1, 2, 3 controls on our keyboard, those cameras will actually switch. So now we can see which one is being shown in the program window. The other great thing about multi-camera editing is that you can edit on the go as you're watching. All you have to do is enable this record toggle as you are watching through it. So let's watch through it a little bit, and I will keep my fingers on the 1, 2, and 3 numbers on my keyboard. And you'll see that this yellow outline will change to a red outline. And as I'm switching, the view up here will change as well. Oh, one thing I also can do is I can flip this third camera so that it's right side up. So let me go back into the audio here, double click, and I want to change this pink, and I want to go to the rotation over here, and I want to do 180, just so that when it's back in the multicam, it's right side up. And maybe I'll increase the scale of it a little bit so I don't see the edge of the table. So if I increase the scale of it a little bit, like that, I go back here, there we go. Okay, so let's start recording. Let's actually go to the beginning of, I can see using the waveform, I can see that everything here is pretty much useless. And maybe I started talking a few times here and here, but that's useless too. So everything here, I can just already cut out. So I'll put my playhead there, and I'll press the Q button, and the Q button will cut everything from the previous cut point to my playhead. There we go. So now I can start, and I'll start on 1. And as I play through, again, I'm holding my fingers on the 1, 2, and 3 keys. So this is the Everyday Egg Cooker from Dash. I found it at Target, and as someone who cooks a lot of eggs every single day, I thought that this may be able to help me with some of that. Specifically, here on the side, it says that it can cook deviled eggs, it can cook soft-boiled, hard-boiled, and omelets. The omelet one is what I'm a little suspicious about, so let's try it out. Just gonna go ahead and open it. Oh, the packaging is really beautiful. It says, "Great choice. Get to know your cooker. Look inside, you'll find an envelope with everything you need to get started, including quick start guide, recipes, and instructions." So we have our quick start guide, I think. No, this is just a thing about tagging them on Instagram. Alrighty. This is a beautiful packaging, a recipe book. Very cool. So this is the recipe book, Everyday Egg Cooker. The second that I stop playing it, it actually adds all of those cuts. So all of the times I was switching back and forth between different cameras, it added all those cuts here. And you can see that it added them to the video layer, not to the audio layer. And if I expand it and move in closer, you can see that you have the thumbnails visible for each one here. So once you are done through doing this for your entire sequence, so let's just pretend that I'm done with my entire sequence, I'll press W, and that will trim everything from my playhead onward. Now everything is green, right? Everything is labeled green, but we did all that beautiful labeling at the beginning. So how do we bring that back and refine this edit? Well, let's select everything with Command A, right click, go to multi-camera, and we can select flatten. And when we select flatten, you can see that all those clips come back, and now they are all on the timeline themselves. And now I can get out of the multi-camera view, and you can see that they're all back to exactly where I wanted them to be. Now, sometimes maybe you made a mistake, right? Like I have this blue clip and maybe I don't want this blue clip in here. I want it to go straight from the orange clip to the pink clip without the blue clip. So I will just delete it and extend my orange clip. Or let's say that I do want the blue clip in here. I just want it to be a little bit longer. I want it to go from here to here, and I want to shorten my pink clip. Now I could do this if I wanted to. That's a way to do it. Another way to do it is to press N on your keyboard. So once you press N, it will turn into the rolling edit tool, and you can just drag the end, and that will auto adjust as well. So you can use that rolling edit tool to make sure that your cuts are a little bit more accurate to what you actually want them to be when you are watching through. You can also use the Command K button to slice through the entire row of clips, audio, everything in order to cut out silences. Like for example, I see that I have, let's say I have this gap right here that has a silence, right? So let me use my N button to roll that edit to the beginning of where that silence starts. I'll place my playhead right at the edge of that clip, and you can jump your playhead from different cut points by going up and down on your keyboard. And I'll go ahead and press Command K or Control K, and that will cut the audio track as well. I'll place my playhead right where I want to cut out. So I want everything basically from this cut to my playhead. So everything here I want to cut. I'll press Q and it'll cut. So I can use the switching from camera to camera to cut out all of the silences here as well. For example, I'll do N, I'll move that, I'll put my playhead right where it meets that cut, I'll press Command K, I'll put my playhead at the end of the silence, and I'll press Q, and that'll cut the silence out. That'll make it a lot faster for you to get through the multicam edit. Last but not least, I promised you that I'd show you color matching, so let's jump into that real quick. So here I have a project. It's actually a short film, and even though I didn't use multicam, it was the same technique where I colored the different angles with different colors on the timeline. And say I want to add a color to this shot right here, and then have this shot match the color. Why? Well, it just so happens that when I shot this short film, I shot all of her scenes in the daytime. So all the lighting that you're seeing on her is actually daylight lighting from the windows for the most part. And then his reverse shots, we shot entirely at night. So all of the lighting was fake lighting that I created. So if I just straight up copy paste the color correction from one to the other, it's not going to look as accurate. So let's color correct her first. We'll go to Window, Lumetri Color. We'll pop on, for basic correction, we'll just pop on a very basic LUT, lookup table. We'll add a little bit more exposure, probably make it a little bit warmer, a little bit more green, and take down the blacks a little bit. Give it a little bit more contrast and saturation. That looks good to me right there. And now we want to match his footage to this footage. So we will place our playhead over his clip over here. Let's just do that same basic LUT again. And then we'll go to down here to color wheels and match, and we will pull up comparison view. Now again, we're trying to match his footage to her footage. Her footage luckily is already selected here, but if it wasn't, I would basically find it in the timeline. So now that we have this and this, it's pretty close, but not 100%. I can go ahead and click on Apply Match, make sure that face detection is selected. And there we go. It has matched the two shots between each other. So this is a really useful tool if you're trying to match multiple cameras or you're trying to match the same camera but at different times. You can always be using the Apply Match in the comparison view. And on top of that, because you've color corrected everything, now you can go and select this Lumetri color over here in Effect Controls, copy it by going Command C. Now you can right click on that clip, go to Label, select Label Group, deselect the actual clip you're working on by holding down Shift, and then paste that color correction to everything else that is labeled that color by going to Command V. And now look, all of the clips that were the light pink on the timeline are now colored with that color. You can do the same thing for his footage. So you can go over here to Lumetri Color, select it, go to Command C to copy, then right click, go to Label, select Label Group, deselect his because you don't want to copy his color correction twice, right? And then go to Command V. And now all of the clips that are green are going to have that color correction on it. I hope you enjoyed this simple and quick tutorial for how to use multicam for your workflows and a little bit on how to shoot multicam and how to add color correction across from different clips. My name is Valentina Vee. You can find me on Twitter at Valentina Vee, on Instagram at valentina.v, and I would really appreciate if you filled out your session survey to let me know if I did a good job. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.